You too can add AD and DDT security to your next campsite with Alarm. Welcome back to D&D Spells Explained. I'm John from Dumbest D&D, and today we're taking a look at a level 1 abjuration spell called Alarm. This spell is for rangers, wizards, and artificers, and also Oath of the Watcher's paladins. If you're a wizard, congratulations, you get to cast this as a ritual without burning a spell slot. The rest of you, though, well, you're stuck just burning a level 1 spell slot and dealing with it. Good news is, while it does take 1 action to cast, it is an 8-hour duration. This is the quintessential, I'm setting an alarm in case anybody enters our camp at night, can burn this spell slot right before you take a long rest, and then you get it right back. So you cast this ward of protection in a 20-foot cube. You have to do it within 30 feet of where you want to be. And any creature that touches or enters that area while you are in that 8-hour duration, it will trigger an alarm. The alarm is either mental or audible with a little bell, or the mental is a ping that hits you directly in your brain. You determine this at the time of casting, that way you know, hey, this thing is touching or has entered the area. What kind of alert are you going to get? Alarm seems pretty straightforward overall. At least in my opinion. But let's take a look at rules as written and dive a little deeper. Rules as written for Alarm. You set an alarm against unwanted intrusion. Choose a door, a window, or an area within range that is no larger than a 20-foot cube. Until the spell ends, an alarm alerts you whenever a tiny or larger creature touches or enters the warded area. When you cast the spell, you can designate creatures that won't set off the alarm. You also choose whether the alarm is mental or audible. A mental alarm alerts you with a ping in your mind if you are within 1 mile of the warded area. This ping awakens you if you are sleeping. An audible alarm produces the sound of a handbell for 10 seconds within 60 feet. And the material component of this is a tiny bell and a piece of fine silver wire. So think this is a little booby trap where you're entering a door, you hit the tripwire, and ding-a-ling-a-ling, you get that silver handbell going off. So who triggers this? Any creature that touches or enters the area. So if somebody throws a log through the door and invades the space, it's not going to trigger this. It also is reliant upon who you say will not trigger this. So if you say creatures, I don't know, I like cats, and so I want a cat to be able to wander in, come and go as it pleases. You can designate that initially as you're casting this spell. What if someone is in the area when you cast this? So someone that's invisible or hiding and you cast Alarm, well, they are going to not trigger that until they end up moving. Is breathing moving? I don't know. I would say you probably have to make some sort of movement, but you have to be really still. So if someone is in there while you're casting, it's not going to trigger immediately. It's going to wait for that action. The alarm itself is interesting as you have the 2 options, mental or audible. Mental, this gives you up to a mile in distance. You can cast this on, let's say there's an outhouse that you have something in there that you really want to protect, or you are in charge of a group of people and you want to know how many times they're taking a trip to the restroom. I don't know. Maybe you run an organization within D&D. But with that mile, you get that audible ping. I like to think of this as someone also designating what that ping sounds like. So it could be just a standard beep, a little like boop noise, or it could be, I want someone to yell alarm, alarm in my head when this is triggered. Think too that a mile is over 1,000 5-foot tiles away. It's a broad distance. So even if that alarm is triggered, you're not going to be able to get back right away. If someone triggers it, they may be gone by the time you get back. The audible alarm, the little bell, 60 feet is the range that you'll be able to hear it, and it's going to only be for 10 seconds. So as soon as that 10 seconds is gone, not going to be able to hear it anymore. But the good news is, if you're doing this during a long rest, both situations are going to wake you up. Even the ringing of the bell, it says so in Xanthar's Guide. It said a sudden loud noise such as yelling, thunder, or ringing a bell also awakens someone that is sleeping naturally. So if you have the sleep spell and you're sleeping because of that, it's not going to count. But sleeping naturally, that ringing bell is going to wake you up for sure. Personally, I would choose the mental alarm every single time. Granted, it is only you as the individual who cast alarm in the first place that's going to hear this, but you can yell and wake up all of your compadres. Also, it's easy to overlook, but just because you've been alerted doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be able to see who caused the alert. If someone is invisible and they've come into your space, they're still going to be invisible. You just know that someone has touched or entered the area. Alarm is really like just hearing a creaking door in the middle of the night. It's like, oh, I know someone is out there. I don't know where exactly specifically. Remember, too, that this is only a 20-foot cube, so 20 by 20 by 20. Uses for alarm. The easiest one is dropping it at the beginning of a dungeon or at your campsite for the night. Thinking about it at the beginning of a dungeon or a main intersection of a dungeon, this allows you to know if other monsters in the dungeon are coming or going, if anyone is still around back in a space that you've already gone into. You could also drop this on the entrance to a heist where you want to stake out the area for a bit. If you are hoarding D&D pastry weapons like the Thumpernickel, you may want to protect that space. And so setting an alarm on the chest that holds those pastry weapons is acceptable. Remember, too, it doesn't need to be 20-foot cube exactly. It could be smaller than that. It is just up to a large area of 20 feet cubed. Mainly, it doesn't do much good to have it be less than 20-foot cubed unless you expect a lot of foot traffic in the area where you are trying to set your alarm. There is some strange discussion, though, of can it be a movable object that you are triggering or setting the alarm on? Rules as written and most likely intended, it's probably supposed to be stationary. So a door, a window, those things aren't typically moving around. But if they're on a ship, the ship is probably moving, which means the door and the window are also moving. So would it not also make sense to then have the ability to move the thing that you're setting the alarm on? Again, it's a little sketchy, but I think you can make an argument for, okay, I'm going to cast it on this door. What happens if the door moves? Within that 8 hours, if the barbarian rips the door off the hinges and then carries it around, do you have the alarm on you the whole time? I don't know. I think if your party has a creative way to use alarm and is having fun with it, while not being too ridiculous, you can probably be a little loose on the rules here. If you're worried that something has alarms set on it, or someone has set an alarm somewhere in a castle or a dungeon, you could always just conjure some animals, chuck some, quarter CR or lower creatures at it to alert them, because then they're going to trigger that and be like, oh, well, somebody's here. Nope, it's just a rat. I would just send a rat into your area. There are some that even argue that you can set a permanent alarm if you cast it in the same spot every day for a year. There's no rule or there's no statement within the rules as written that say that this is doable. So something similar to teleportation circle that's very explicit about you can make this a permanent spell if you do this every day for a year. So again, up to you at your table. Let me know in the comments below what you think would be done there, but it doesn't seem to me like you're going to set that. Maybe if you have a business, in our campaign, they have an Air D&D house, and so they're renting it out all the time. Maybe you can set an alarm there because you're going to be back in town all the time. It's every day for a year, though. So if you have the dedication to do that, boy, I don't know many parties that are going to be like, yeah, let's go back to the same spot every single day for one whole year. Unless you're doing a fast forward and you're, 1 year in time, 1 year has elapsed. Every single day I did this. Okay, maybe, but yeah, I don't know. Alarm is also a rare spell because it hasn't really gone through much change over the years and through the editions. Previous versions were essentially the same spell, but up until 3.5, they also had a little bit where you could add a password for it. So instead of designating which creatures are able to come and go from the alarmed area, it would just say your creature would just have a password of Chungus and you would be able to go in without issue. I'm a little bummed that they got rid of the password one. I think that could be a cool element, especially if you're running an underground hat fighting ring, but at the same time, I get it. So that's Alarm, level 1 abjuration spell. It's a great way to protect yourself and your party and be alerted when someone is trying to come get you. I haven't really found any cases so far where you're able to get through the alarm without triggering it. So again, it makes it pretty helpful. Now, if you know that the person setting the alarm is going to set it to a specific creature, then you may be able to polymorph or, alter self and change how you look in order to move through. Will that work? It's up to you and your table. I am not sure. So that is Alarm. Let us know in the comments below how you've seen this used well and how you've seen it used poorly. And until next time, thanks for watching.